Hi guys, Allison here, the Bored Housewife. Thank you for joining me for another week's episode of the Bored Housewife. If you have been enjoying these episodes, please share with a friend. I would love to spread this community and just continue to make it bigger and better, and just continue to inspire, encourage other housewives or stay-at-home spouses in any sort of capacity. I think it's just great to have a community because this is not always the easiest life choice to make, but it certainly is an important one. So I just want to continue to reach out and have these interesting conversations and cover topics that you guys want to hear about. So also please comment, subscribe, check out my social media sites. The June email has been sent out, so if you're curious about all the things that we're going to be talking about this month, go subscribe for the monthly newsletter. It comes out usually like the first or second day of the month, and I give a very brief view of what the month is kind of going to entail and the episode names, so you can kind of get a glimpse into what we're going to be talking about. Anyways, so all good stuff. Go and check out my link that I have in the description, and you will find a lot more of the Bored Housewife content and things there that are fun to keep you thinking and reflecting on your life and meaning and all of that stuff. So, speaking of reflection, this week, to kick off June, I am talking about meditation. And so this episode is going to be a little bit of a journey because as I was outlining it, I was getting inspired by other things that I've heard or seen on some of the social media accounts that I personally follow. And that's another thing too. I don't know if you guys are on my Instagram, but the Bored Housewife Instagram page, a lot of the people that I follow on there, I'm trying to find some people that are into the same sort of things, right? And try to get the algorithm to work with me a little bit. But I ended up following a bunch of people that are very inspirational, and sometimes I even share some of their posts because they just have some really good thought-provoking things on there. And so one person posted something that really got me thinking recently, but just to say, just a side note here, if you're looking for even more stuff to give you meaning and just be more positive in your newsfeed, because I know some of the stuff on my personal page, it can get maybe a little political or a little raunchy even sometimes, and I'm just where did all of this come from? So it's kind of nice for me to go to my other page and I can kind of see just a little bit more positivity and enlightened thinking, and it's kind of cool. But anyways, so what ended up happening is some stuff that I've recently seen on social media has kind of started to inspire me as I was outlining this conversation about meditation. It's something that I very recently started, but so far have really enjoyed. So I want to share that experience with you, and then it's going to kind of go into this other conversation, but it is related, so just hang in with me, okay? But it should be a good episode, and hopefully give you guys some things to think about. So I am sipping on some red wine. It is a Cabernet from Chile. I don't know the name of it. I found it in a Japanese grocery store. So I think it's just, I don't know why I think that's funny, but I just think it's cool. It's just cool, living in another country and finding other countries' stuff, I guess, in the same way that we find it in America. So it's pretty neat. But anyways, so yeah, sipping on my red wine. Grab your beverage of choice for whatever time of day that calls for when you're listening to this. And cheers, guys. Let's have some fun. So, like I was saying, I have recently discovered meditation. I've always, like, obviously, it's been around forever. I've heard of it, but it's just recently something that I started doing for myself. And personally, why I kind of found it and decided to start doing it is I am stressed out for absolutely no reason. I put a lot of stress on myself with my personal goals and expectations and things that I want done, how I want them done. And it's just silliness, I know, but it's just something that I've kind of realized, and I've been doing a lot of self reflection. I don't think I say that pretty much every time I start one of these podcasts. I don't think I'm ever gonna stop reflecting. I think I'm just one of those people that's always like, how can I make my life better? Like, how can I be a better person? And not that I am a better person, because I have a lot of stuff to work on, but I think I'm just constantly like just in my head. So, which is probably part of the reason why I'm stressed out all the time, though. But I think it's good to be reflective, but I have a tendency to, yeah, like just put too much on my plate, or just put too much of an expectation on myself. And so I'm trying to find the balance, and working on that. But I realized the other day, and this is something that I've done forever, like since I can remember, I hold my breath when I'm stressed out, or when I'm like, have something that I'm kind of thinking about pretty hard on, and my husband's always like thinks that I'm upset or like mad or something because I sigh a lot. And he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm totally fine. I just like, I sighed." And he was like, "Okay," because usually that's, sign that like you're pissed off or something. For me, I'm just taking a deep breath because I've been like either really shallow breathing, or like haven't been breathing for a second. So it's like, okay. And so I just was like, okay, this isn't good, because like I'm no expert, and I will say this, I say this a lot too. I'm not an expert in any of this stuff, right? It's just personal experience and my opinion on things mixed with like little things that I learn about as I experience things, right? So my husband has sleep apnea. And one of the things the doctors told us with sleep apnea, because like my husband was being really weird because he has to wear a mask and it's uncomfortable, and I don't like it either because it wakes me up. And so lots of things with the sleep apnea, but it's like he either snores or it's the mask. So I'm like, okay, well, I want you to be healthy, so you're gonna wear the mask. If the mask keeps me up, like whatever, at least you'll be alive longer, hopefully. So one of the things with sleep apnea is like over like very little people just like stop breathing in their sleep. Most of the causes of like sleep apnea, when you don't treat it and you don't like work like to fix it, is like you could create like other diseases, and that basically like heart disease could be caused by it, and like some other things, because you're not breathing. You put a lot of stress on different things like that. So like not breathing puts a lot of stress on your heart. Okay. So like as I'm realizing I'm holding my breath a lot, I'm like, well, this can't be good for my body. Like this can't be good for my heart long term. And this isn't a great way to deal with stress, holding my breath. Like, again, as we're trying to be more reflective and become better people, and like asking, the philosophical why questions and all of that, like it's good to realize that like, I haven't been dealing with stress very well my entire life. And so like outwardly I can seem very very composed, unless I'm like in a fit of rage, which is something completely different. But like if I'm just stressed out over some scenario, outwardly I can appear very composed, but inwardly I'm like a mess. And I'll have my little like quiet moments, like silent moments to myself, where like I might cry or something, but like or I might call my mom and like vent to her, but or vent to my husband. But most people don't really see a lot of the effects that like stress has on me personally. And I'm gonna guess that a lot of us are probably like that, because you have to like continue to live your life, right? You have to like figure it out. But what I'm realizing with my stress is like holding it in is causing me to hold my breath and like hold tension in my body. And like as I'm getting older, I'm 31 now, guys. It's just causing a lot of issues. Like I'm getting shoulder and neck pain all the time. When you don't sleep well from that sort of stuff, you're just cranky and grouchy, and nobody likes that. So I realized I have to do something about this. I have to start like trying to work out how to deal with this a little bit better. So the first thing I looked up was breathing exercises. And then within the breathing exercises, meditation came up. So, long story short, this is how I started to sort of meditate. So I do one before bed, which is on that like sleep cycle app thing, which is like a guided meditation. And basically it just kind of like helps me fall asleep while like being aware of like my breathing. Because part of also like if you're someone like me who holds their breath a lot, or if you're like listening to this now and you're like, oh holy shit, I do that a lot too. Like just doing breathing practices and being like mindful breathing exercises can actually help you kind of like get out of that a little bit. So I do one of those at bedtime. So that just kind of like helps me quiet my brain, because that's another thing too. Like when I go to fall asleep, it's like I am those like memes of the people that are like, I'm so tired, and then like my brain at 3 a.m. and it's like meh, 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 like like going over comebacks from like 20 years ago. Like, it's just like stupid shit like that. But yeah, so it helps like quiet down that and like just kind of get like focused into sleeping. And then I do one in the morning now too. So I'll work out, and then after my workout, I've started doing like a 10-minute meditation. And I found these like guided meditations on YouTube, and I really like them a lot. So if you guys are interested in those at all, let me know. I haven't done like a ton of research. I like that these are 10 minutes and that they're guided. So they have some like soothing music in the background, and then they also have somebody helping you like stay kind of focused in your intention for the meditation. I hope to eventually just be able to like sit down and meditate in silence, but for now, it's really hard for me. Like I can sit down and watch TV for an hour and it's like not a big deal, but then ask me to sit there and meditate for 10 minutes and I'm like fidgeting and twitching. I'm like, is this over yet? So that's kind of what I've been up to. And I'm sharing this because it's been very helpful. I've only been doing it for a few weeks, and it's been really impactful for me in de-stressing, and also just like my body's feeling better. Like the de-stressing aspect, like you don't realize like how much stress you hold in your body, and it's a weird, stress is such a weird thing. But yeah, so I've been feeling a lot more relaxed and focused. And again, I'm not a meditation expert, but like a lot of that stuff that I stress out about, like our budget, my podcast, my writing, my future, our future, where are we going to live after the Marine Corps, living in Okinawa, my husband going on deployment, like all of our life, like my life, right? Like we just stress out about our life and the things going on in it and the future. And then even like the past shit, just like stressing about like, that dumb thing that I said. And so it's like, when I meditate, and I'm not like, you're not supposed to think about anything while you meditate. So if you're not familiar with meditating, which I'm sure most of you probably are, but I'm going to assume, you're not, so that we'll just lay it out here. But when you sit there, you're supposed to just kind of let your mind go, and it kind of like basically gives your brain like a break. So all of that stuff that you've been worrying about, like when it comes into focus, or like when you're meditating and you start thinking about something, you're supposed to just try to like maybe focus on your breathing, or focus on like something physical about your body, and then sort of try to like let it go, because you're not supposed to be thinking about any sort of one thing during the practice, because, and I don't know why, but I'm guessing just it gives your brain a break. And so once I do that, then when I'm out of the meditation, things begin to kind of click a little bit easier. So even though you're not actively thinking about these things, like I think of it maybe like, a record that's going around and around and around that like has played through all the songs. Like the record's not going to stop, right? So it just keeps moving around and around in the circle until somebody comes and gives the record a break. And then you can start it over again. And so I think like we kind of get stuck on something like that and like our ideas of whatever's going on and trying to figure out a solution to all that. When it's just going around and around and around, it doesn't really give you it doesn't give you space to find the solution, or doesn't give you space to be at peace or accept the scenario that's going on. Instead, it's just going around and around in a circle like a broken record. But when you give it a break and then are able to come back to it, it's like you're coming back to a whole new scenario, and maybe you're able to see some things differently, or at least be at peace with the scenario or accept the scenario. And it's really, I think, just about giving your mind a break from focusing too hard on one thing at that time. So it also, meditating helps to be a little bit more present in life. And this is where the podcast is going to start going in a different direction, because it inspired some of these other thoughts. But meditation helps you be more present and helps you kind of filter the distractions a little bit. So we live in a world full of distractions. And as I was thinking about this, I'll just kind of go through how I wrote it down here. But I was thinking like, even while you're listening to this podcast, and most of you probably are because I certainly would be, and please realize when I'm starting to say all this stuff, there's no judgment, because once I get to this other point, I do all of this, okay? But you're probably multitasking right now, right? You're not just sitting there listening to my podcast. You might be cleaning or exercising or cooking or doing something else. And if you are just sitting there listening to my podcast, well, that's really cool too, Maybe this is your rest time and you're drinking a glass of wine while you're listening to my podcast. So that's pretty cool. But I was like, the thing that I saw was like this guy talking about how we don't really have silence in our world anymore. We don't just kind of sit with silence anymore. And so I got to thinking about that, and I was like, the only time that I really sit with silence is like, for one, when I'm making this podcast, but because I have to, because I'm talking. But like, even still, like, I'm talking, right? Like, so I'm filling the room with sound. But like when I'm editing, I don't have music or anything else on, but I am listening to what I'm talking about. So I'm pretty much listening to a podcast, right? When I'm writing and stuff, I typically don't have much going on. I will play some really low ambient music. And that's more so to help drown out anything that's outside. So like if I hear a truck outside or kids playing or, a car coming home or something like that, or even the wind or the birds and stuff, that will sometimes take me out of my writing, and my, focus will go out there. So sometimes that ambient music just kind of helps like filter all of that and makes me stay a little bit more focused. But it's usually very low and all that. But any other time in my life, I'm probably have either music on, a podcast on, or a TV show on in the background. And so I was thinking about that, like while we're cooking, working out, getting ready, cleaning, driving, even, and then I said, even in my meditations, they're guided meditations with like soft music in the background. Like I don't have many instances in my life where I'm not being entertained by something. And then this guy had mentioned like a lot, like even reading a book. I do sit and read a book in silence. I can have music in the background, but again, it has to be like more of like a classical music, an instrumental type music. It can't have words to it, because then the words confuse me with the words that I'm reading. But he was making the point that like people don't even like read books without music in the background. But I would even argue that like you're still entertaining yourself with a book. You're not just sitting in silence for the sake of sitting in silence. And so as I'm saying this, I want you to ask yourself and like reflect in this moment, like, do you do the same thing? Like, how often do you have, complete silence or, and I'm not talking so much about like what's going on outside, because, you have the wind and the birds and like the trees rustling and all that stuff. But I mean, like, you're just like, okay, cooking in silence. You're just okay cleaning in silence. Like, do any of you do this? And so I'm guessing most of us probably don't. And maybe I'm like totally assuming wrong here. Like, I guess like if you have kids or something and it's nap time and you're trying to get stuff done, yeah, you might do a lot of that in silence, and you might really enjoy those times. So I'm just going off assumption here. But I was like, as I was like thinking about all of this, I was like, what does this say about us that we don't do a lot in silence? Because he was also even talking about like, music's like pumped through in malls and like shopping centers and airports, and it's like it's really hard actually. I mean, maybe the library, you could go to the library and sit in silence, but like there's really not too many places unless you're like going to the park or outside or something, but like public places where like you're not being bombarded with some sort of noise, right? So I was like, is this okay? Is it okay? So as I was like, asking myself that question, at first, this guy kind of freaked me out a little bit. Um, and it's weird how people can like just pose like simple ideas or questions and you're kind of like, oh my God, what's the matter with us? But then as I started thinking about it more, I'm like, well, if you think about it, like music, TV or podcasts can typically enhance an experience. So, for instance, I don't like working out. It's not something that's fun for me to do. So, one thing I enjoy doing while working out is watching a fun TV show. And usually it's a show that I've seen before or something that's fairly easy to consume, nothing that's like too complicated where like if I am counting reps or looking somewhere else, like my focus isn't on the TV, I'm not going to be lost, right? But it gives me like the motivation to keep going because it's like, oh, well, I'm watching a TV show. So in that way, like working out with in complete silence is going to be a really difficult thing for most people to do. Going to the gym, it's great to have a pumped up, like fun playlist that you listen to while you're doing that to give you like motivation to keep going, and get your adrenaline pumping a little bit, right? So in that scenario, complete silence really hinders the experience of working out. Like having great music or a great podcast or a TV show or something to watch while you're doing that is going to help keep you motivated to continue to work out. And then like making dinner. I don't always hate making dinner. I do enjoy cooking. And for me, a lot of the enjoying of cooking is like kind of mastering a skill and then seeing the reward of people enjoying it. But like if I were to say that like I love cooking, like cooking is also hard. It's a skill that you have to do. I would assume that even like Gordon Ramsay would be like, yeah, cooking is really difficult. And so for me, like cooking with music on kind of puts me in a good mood, or to have a TV show again to listen to while I'm cooking, just helps like kind of allows me to zone out a little bit, and um, it doesn't feel so hard, I guess. And so we're going to have another episode later in the month about doing things that are hard. um, but it's nice when you can have something that kind of like lifts some of that off of it. So like if I'm making like a pasta dinner and I'm like playing fun Italian music or like fun 60s like Italian stylish, like music, that really gets me in the mood and it makes me feel good. So like that again is enhancing experience. Um, and then like, driving to work. Like I don't have to drive to work anymore, but I would talk on the phone to my mom when I did work. That was really one of the times that we would get a chance to talk because of like time difference and just the hours that we both were working. So it was great to fill that time with something, but we all listen to music. Again, you might listen to a podcast or a book on tape. We do things because the act of driving is very mundane and it's boring. And so, why wouldn't you fill that time with something productive? Why wouldn't you fill that with something that's going to boost your mood, like a good song, or get you in the mood for work, or take the time to talk to somebody and catch up? It's almost like wasted time if you're not taking that time, right? And also, when I'm driving, I can't get too ready because then I like space out, which is I think is super dangerous. So, I do things while I'm driving to keep me focused, like on driving too. Otherwise, like it's just dangerous. Um, so I guess like when it's that kind of stuff, it's like, well, I think that's okay because a lot of stuff that we do on a daily basis is, hard or boring. And being able to add some sort of noise or learning aspect or fun into that enhances the experience. And it's almost like, we get a little bit of that back, right? It's like, okay, I have to cook dinner, but I'm getting time to listen to my favorite podcast while I do that. Where it's hard to find time to sit down and do nothing and listen to your favorite podcast. So I think when these distractions, I'm using air quotes, distractions are entered in those sorts of scenarios, I think it's okay because they're enhancing the experience. But when the distractions are distractions in a way of like, you should be cooking, but you're sitting on your phone watching TikTok, or you should be cleaning, but you're, maybe just sitting and watching TV instead. When there's stuff to be done, and then we're using, all of this to kind of distract us from doing things, then that's when I wonder, like, maybe that's the line. Maybe that's the line of something where, like, silence kind of helps us get to a more motivated place, like, because we have time to think about it. So, like, if you sit down and start watching a TV show and you have to clean your house, okay? If watching the TV show starts to distract you from the cleaning aspect, then maybe it's better done in silence, or maybe it's better done with like some other form of noise. And again, like, I don't know if this is right or wrong or not, but it seems to me like when the distractions are enhancing the experience, then that's okay. But when they're taking away from getting things that actually need to be done, then I kind of see this guy's point. Like, we rely on all of this in our life to stop us from doing things that are important. So to my final point, and I'm going to wrap it up, and this is going to become full circle. When we don't give ourselves the opportunity to reflect and meditate, when we don't give ourselves the opportunity to have silence in our life in order to think about some of these things, because I guess like when I do the guided meditations, like I am sitting there and I do, like I said, I have like, there's some soft music and specifically in the meditation, right, you're not necessarily trying to think about anything, but to give ourselves some space in our life, even if it's just for a few minutes. Maybe it's while you take a shower. So maybe when you're not getting, like, maybe when you're getting ready, you're not listening to music. It's just kind of nice to be able to be with yourself in those thoughts, because sometimes it's kind of hard to have really productive thoughts and think things through when you do have like fun music playing. And, while you're cooking, again, like, you could stand there and cook without having anything and have that time to sort of, think through some things that have been going on. And I think that's really, for me, being able to sit, and I do stare at the wall a lot. I know that sounds so dumb, but I am a very reflective person. So I do have a lot of time in my days, like most days, where I do kind of like zone out and I'm thinking about stuff. And I do sit in silence thinking about that, but I don't do it intentionally, which I think is different. So I think that when we sit down with the intention of being in a silent scenario and giving ourselves some space to just breathe and be in that moment, it really helps sort of work through things. And then if you're somebody like me who's super stressed out all the time for absolutely no reason at all, it helps you kind of like figure out some of those things of like, why do I feel this way? Why do I act this way? And sort of help you kind of like figure out, where all of that's coming from. And then also figure out reasons like, or like different ways to help manage it. And I think, well, so far what I've realized is that just giving myself time to sit and breathe and not think about this stuff is actually really helpful and might be the antidote to, not being so stressed out all the time. This might be what I do, right? So how I handle my stress, I sit down for 10 minutes every day and meditate, or at least have just like a quiet time for myself. So I think it's interesting. And so I wanted to like just pose this for you guys, because it's like, how often are you sitting in silence with no distractions? And I know a lot of you have kids too, so I can imagine it can be incredibly hard to get a moment alone to yourself. I know it's even hard to go to the bathroom, right? Just sit on the toilet by yourself without your kids like trying to get in and like, get in your stuff, right? So it's like, I get how hard it is, but just something to kind of think about if you're in a scenario where you're really stressed out for various reasons and it doesn't feel like it's going away. Like, you have maybe some solutions, you have some plans, but you're still stressing about it. Like, we're trying to save some money right now, so the budget has been like a stressful thing for me, just trying to figure out like what we can save, like where we can, like, I guess, where can we take money, sorry, what do I want to say? So like, what do we need to do in order to save money, basically? So like, do we, eat out less? Do we spend more nights in? Do we, like, what do we do? Like, do I need to cut the grocery bill so we can still go out? Like, what is it that I need to do, right? So I've like found some things for us that should work, in theory, and I found a solution and I've made a plan, and I was still stressing about it. So it's like, well, now that I made the plan and like, as long as we stick to it and as long as we kind of follow this, then there should be no reason to be stressing about that anymore. But I still was. So it's like stuff like that. It's like, once you have your priorities and a plan in place, like, it shouldn't be that stressful anymore. And with that being said, I mean, stuff comes up, right? Especially financial stuff. Like, you always have the random this or that you weren't prepared to pay for, or like you weren't like planning on paying for. So it's like, even if you have the money to pay it, it's like you don't want to. It's an unexpected expense. So, but yeah, so it's like, I just wanted to kind of bring that up, and I wanted to share with you guys that meditation has really been helping with me work through some of that stuff and just have that time to kind of let my mind wander and kind of like fix things. I don't really know how to explain it, but if you do it, you know what I'm talking about. But I think it really is about giving your brain a break and allowing yourself to be free of those thoughts for a minute too. It's just like not having to deal with that for a second also feels really good, and just really helps sort of bring down your stress. And when you do that too, then you just start being a better person. Like when you're stressed out, like I don't know if you guys feel this at all, but like I'm not a nice person. Like I don't want to see people. I, have a hard time like seeing the best in people. I get, a little negative, and so just getting de-stressed and all of that, it just makes me feel like a lighter, better, breezier, easygoing person. So, anyways, let me know what you guys think. I know this episode kind of turned in a weird direction, but I think it all kind of related. I hope I gave you guys some things to think about. Where are the silent moments in your life? Do you care? Do you think it's a big deal that, there's not a lot of silence in the world anymore? Do you do specific things to create silence in your world? Like, I'm just kind of curious what you guys think about that. And if you're not meditating, I really encourage it. Obviously, no pressure, but it's been really helpful. And if you guys are really interested, I'll post the page that I've been following. Again, I'm no expert. I didn't do much research into it. I found it on YouTube. I liked it. They have 10-minute meditations. They're super easy. And it's nice. It's a nice little break. So if you're interested, let me know. And yeah, subscribe, comment, check out the description and click the link and check out everything that I have going on and share with a friend. I think that's about it. All right. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And cheers. I'll see you soon. Bye.